Oh, yeah. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's Alarm Fantasy Football. Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper here, helping you guys every step of the way. And it is time for Best Ball Wednesdays, right? What's up, Coop? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, and it wouldn't be a Fantasy Alarm Best Ball show if there wasn't some sort of tech error at the start of the show here. I think we might get this figured out right in time for kickoff. But today, ladies and gentlemen, the show started all right, but somehow someone managed to join the draft and start it before Howard could join. So Howard's not drafting with us today. How about that?
I'm just here for the pretty face, the eye candy, whatever you guys need. Maybe some snarky commentary. I love one of our guests who's joining us today. I'm very excited about the other one. Well, I can't stand. I 100% can't stand him. I'll let you guys all try and figure out who's it going to be. I see them both smirking in the background. And I'll tell you, no reason to smirk. You're okay. Oh, did I say it? Oh, oops.
Yeah, there he is. Well, tell you what, this is what we're doing today. We did the RotoWire Showdown where we faced off the Fantasy Alarm crew against Jim Coventry, Alan Seslowski. Obviously, we dominated that draft. That was an easy one. So people enjoyed that though. So we said, let's get on another crew. Let's go toe to toe with another crew. Get the Fantasy Alarm people in here against another squad. This time, player profiler. We'll get all their takes. We'll get all their sleepers. We'll steal all their strategies incorporated into ours. And they'll probably finish 11th and 12th in this draft because even though Howard's not in it, it's chock full of Fantasy Alarm family members. We got Rare Lynn in, we got Luke, we've got CDM82. We also have some people that don't typically draft with us. Jeff in the house, Bob Gilchrist in the house, another analyst snuck in there.
Bob Gilchrist in the house. See, of course, it's the draft that I'm not in.
I think Bob is the reason. Bob stole your spot in the draft. But without further ado, since we're already underway, let's just bring those boys on in here. Everybody, let's get the draft board up first and foremost, and let's bring in Mr. Theo Gremminger and Billy Muzio of Player Profiler. Billy, we'll let you go first because you got to defend your honor. How you doing?
Oh man, Howard's showing me nothing but love today. It's every time I can get some love from Howard and you boys, I'm always going to be here. So thanks for the invite, guys.
Yeah, it's tough love. And then of course, Theo Gremminger, who everybody in the world loves. Theo, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm stoked Howard's in here. I've never actually podcasted with Howard, so I'm glad that he likes me more than Billy Muzio, a guy he knows much better. So a lot of vibes there from Howard.
I'm going to just warn you right now, it is an incredibly underwhelming experience. Incredibly underwhelming.
Absolutely.
Drive time radio legend, Howard Bender in the house. And Howard, you can have a unbiased look at this draft from above here. If you can see it all right on the board there.
Well, listen, I'm old. The gray in the beard should tell you that you should probably make that screen a little bit bigger, my friend. Because
that's the best we can do. That's the best we got to get the whole thing on the screen.
What?
I don't know. I can try to go
and Coop, I heard you talking about how you had Alan and Jim on the show before Billy and I. I got to say, we love Alan and Jim, but those guys are not in the streets. Billy and I are drafting every single day, so we're ready to, maybe give you guys a couple of lessons here head to head.
Lessons. That's what we're getting today, Howard. We're going to learn from the mastership. There, screen is
I'm all about learning.
I'm
all about learning. I'm good with that, man. So show me, Theo, what to do. Show me, Billy, what not to do.
Real quick, before we jump into the draft and start, mocking each other, can we talk about your guys' intro? That thing is amazing, by the way.
It's incredible.
I love it. This Howard's face out there is so serious. Like, first thing I started thinking about was the joke. Why so serious?
Yeah, Howard Bender, notorious serious guy. Howard Bender, right? That was. Who made that one for us, Howard?
That was Brian Burns.
Brian
Burns, an absolute legend in creating stuff. So yeah, listen, if you guys want, you hit me up on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy, or you can email me at rotobuzzguy@gmail.com. If you want to pay Brian Burns to do a big intro for you guys, because that dude is unbelievably talented, I will more than happy to put you guys in touch, connect you.
Yeah. Quick shout out before we get into some analysis here to the chat. What's up, chat? We got Mile High Luke in the house, Mr. Fantasy popping in, the legendary Rex Timotheus, Mr. Scampers, the chat cat around the world. Gator J. We got cats in here. We got gators in here. Albert, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us today. Toronto Dave, shout out to the Toronto area. It's going to be a good one here. So let's get started looking at some of these teams. Theo, starting with a classic best ball brain build, all wide receivers. Talk to us about it.
Well, I went back and forth on Devon Achane versus Jalen Waddle in the second round. Tyreek, chalky pick, but still great value there at the 104. I went with the wide receiver. And then when it came up to, I thought maybe Achane would fall to me in the third. That was sort of why I went Waddle. But Devonta Smith, I think, is a fine value there. I think he's a little bit underrated, especially with wide receivers steaming up in Underdog. So, this is a classic 3 wide receiver start for me. I love going wide receiver early in this contest because I think there's value coming up at running back.
Right. What about you, Billy? Brees Hall, Chris Olave, a lot of receptions to be had there, and you're on the clock now. So we'll wait and see who you pick here. But I love the Brees Hall pick in the first round. Do you rank Brees Hall ahead of Bijan, or do you have Bijan ahead? That's kind of a debate that's gone back and forth. This is half PPR as well. We got to keep that in mind. But in half PPR, how do you have those guys?
I have them in the same tier. I mean, it's close. It's like a 1.5 fantasy points in Bijan's favor, and I actually have them all very close to Christian McCaffrey. I think there's a real argument to be made for all 3 of those guys as the RB1. If McCaffrey can stay healthy all season, especially with the potential departure of Brandon Ayuk, we're probably looking at an increased target share this year, which I think is going to just boost up his value even more. So there's a lot of variables currently right now in the offseason. Once we get some clarity, I think we'll have a better determination of who should be RB1. I mean, but I think there's a real argument to be made for all 3 of these guys.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and ask the question here because obviously, Billy, I see the background that you've got going on there. I actually remember when you first got that, and we're redoing your studio. So you are a Niners guy now. Ayuk is back in camp. What's your gut tell you here as far as are they just going to run it back with the Ayuk, Debo, Kittle trio again and worry about that next year, or are they planning on moving somebody?
Yeah, I've been kind of preaching all off season that I believe that the Niners were going to be moving away from one of the wide receivers. Every move they have made has signaled that they are going to make that move. I mean, they go out and draft 2 wide receivers, one in the first round. They re-sign Juan Jennings. They lock up Christian McCaffrey to a deal. So I think that the Niners have every intention of moving on from one of them. It's starting to really appear that it's going to be Brandon Ayuk. And I've been saying it's been Ayuk since the offseason just because of his social media presence and his message to, his own followers and saying that he feels disrespected. And the Niners, I think, are going to find themselves at a cap predicament very soon because we have Purdy who's looking at an extension here, and we all know he's been playing on that rookie contract, and it's been by far something that has allowed them to make the moves that they have made. But when they actually have to pay up for him, then I think that this is where they start to get concerned. And the Niners have showed that they are willing to pay up the position when they overpaid for Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think that Ayuk is probably on the move. If I'm them, I'm probably going to be a little more cold-hearted about it. He's technically under contract. You can hold him here until he's disgruntled or he doesn't show up. And the word is he's showing up and he's at camp. But if they do move on from him, I think that they might trade him last minute. And then from there, that allows them to kind of put the team they trade him to off guard. They have to incorporate him now over a 2-week period where they can't use him out the gate. So I would be smart about moving him. If I'm going to move him, I'm going to do it last minute.
Yeah, the Pearsall pick was kind of a dead giveaway because, with the Kyle Juszczyk and the second tight ends and stuff they use over there, they really don't need 3 wide receivers, right? It would be kind of a waste to have this first round wide receiver if you're only using 2 most of the time. So I'm with you on that. Theo, if you could hand pick a spot for Brandon Ayuk to get traded to for fantasy value, what are some of the spots out there where they'd be targets? I mean, and again, with this question, I go back and forth on, would we rather have him go somewhere where he can be the number 1 target, or would we rather have him go somewhere where the quality of targets are good? Because New England, he would easily be the best player there, but is the quality going to be good? You know,
I
Stop
think
with your wish casting with New England, right?
the Patriots
Look at that
starting wide
freak-
receivers this year, when all is said and done, I'm thinking Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins,
put him anywhere else. Put him anywhere else, man. I can't do this. This is like
Devontae Adams. Those would be the 4 wide receivers. What do you guys think about that? 4, would that be good?
Coop, I love how you're dreaming. Let's get them all up there. Greatest show on turf part 2 in New England this year.
Yeah, right?
I think it's interesting, and Brandon Ayuk has been just so good, despite a lack of like raw target total. I think he was at 105 last year. Billy, correct me if I'm wrong, and he had the third most catches over 20 yards among all wide receivers last year, and the 2 guys ahead of him were CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill, and they had like 1 more catch over 20 yard each, despite getting like 70 more targets than him. So I think he's a super talented player, and it would be interesting to see how he would do with 140 plus targets. One team that I think is interesting is Washington, because I think that team could use another guy, and he would fit right in opposite of Terry McLaurin. And the Jahan Dotson, McCaffrey, those guys sort of seem like complementary pieces. And if you had those 2 guys with a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who we know has a big arm downfield, mobility, and it's going to be a plus offense, I think that would be a nice scenario for Brandon Ayuk to see a target total boost, still be in a plus offense. And it's a quarterback who he seems to have familiarity with. They played together at Arizona State briefly. They stay in touch. And I like the vibes out of Washington right now. New England, that one, Coop, I mean, I think you'd make the argument that he'd get even more targets than in Washington. But for me, I would go with the Washington Commanders as a place where I think his ADP really wouldn't move.
Yeah, for me, I'm thinking Patriots still. I'm thinking Patriots.
I hope he goes to the Patriots, so that way I can watch him just, crumble and fall, and he's no longer a Niner.
He's one of those guys. If I can't have it, if I can't have nice things, nobody can have them.
If you weren't in on Brandon Ayuk at 105 targets, don't be in on him when he is at 85 in the Patriots.
Yeah, I think Patriots leader last year actually had 79. So
80, I was just saying 85 seems a little bullish there, Billy.
Patriots leader in receptions last year was Zeke Elliott with 51. So we will take Brandon Ayuk. We will take any of them. I mean, it's crazy the number of wide receivers out there that could be the best wide receiver on the Patriots immediately.
I think you could be the best receiver on the Patriots.
Dude, I'm just saying, 100% catch rate at the Expo. 2 of 2.
They hit me up for a tryout. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm super busy right now.
I mean, Coop could be like a tight end too. He could challenge Jaheim Bell.
I'm definitely better than Austin Hooper. People are talking about it.
100%.
No, I'm kind of rooting for Jaheim Bell. Long term, Alex Van Pelt, if he hangs around, calls a lot of screens. But I don't know. Hendog is the dog for now. Speaking of tight ends, I just took Kyle Pitts. Right now, the landscape is coming together at tight end. You have four tiers in the QB in the tight end 1 range. You have Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce going in the top tier. Boys, do you find yourself taking anyone from that tier that often?
I've taken plenty of Sam Laporta this year because I think it's interesting where you find him in a range where you're able to get access to last year's tight end 1, but you're not having to use exceptionally high draft capital. I think he's in a range where I'm comfortable drafting him. And in these underdog drafts, when I get a Laporta, I don't really worry about having to load my roster with tight ends. I can go pretty fragile in terms of total number of tight ends. Kelce, I'm not really drafting, but Laporta, I like a lot in that range. I like a couple of the elite tight ends. Last year, we had 6 tight ends go over 200 PPR points, and that's not even counting Mark Andrews. So I think the position is trending up right now.
Love it, dude. And the next tier, it's like those 2 guys are the first 2. They sometimes go in different orders. The next tier is 3 guys that all go in different orders, but it's almost always the same 3 guys. It's some order of Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid. Billy, if you're on the clock and you hate everybody and you're thinking, I got to go tight end here, and you have to pick from one of those 3, who are you feeling in this format, half PPR best ball?
I think there's an argument made for, honestly, any one of the top 6 to be number 1 at the position this year. It's the first time in years that we have had kind of the uncertainty of the clear-cut number 1. I mean, Dalton Kincaid's arguably the number one target in this offense, probably going to have 120, 130 targets. You're talking about Mark Andrews, who has definitely challenged the tight end number one spot for many years. And this offense is trending upwards as well. I personally like Kincaid here just because there is so many available targets here. If I recall, I think they have the second most vacated targets in the league in Buffalo, and this is a clear-cut situation for Dalton Kincaid to really succeed and finally have that breakout season that we are hoping for as a rookie. And he by all means had a great year, but I mean, this is where I think he could potentially be the number one tight end in 2024.
Howard, that puts you in a tough spot because it puts you in agreement with Billy Muzio.
That's something for my therapist couch. I will handle that privately and internally. What happens when I do that? I'm sitting here like Rex Timotheus is chiming in on chat here. I'm looking at these the dueling drafts. I know one's Theo's team at 4. I don't know who's at 6, but the question is who's going to blink first at running back? And then the question on top of that is that, where are we? Because I actually just did a mock draft yesterday where I took nobody who I usually take. And I went with a major wide receiver heavy early on draft and avoided the running backs. So I'm very curious as to, Theo, when you start filling things out and you start looking at, at the running back position, given who's been taken off the board, where do you, if this is like a normal strategy for you, where do you live in the running back world? Ramondre. No,
so I'm back on Ramondre this year. I think post type sleeper. I think he's going to be in for a year way more similar to what we saw in 2022 than what we saw last year. But I think with these sort of underdog builds, I'm comfortable drafting either way. If I was drafting probably a little bit lower, my build might have looked a little bit more like Billy's with a running back at the top. I've had plenty of Bijan, plenty of Breece Hall, love those guys. But for me, it's just sort of the way the board fell when I didn't go Devon Achane end of the second, and he didn't fall to me in the third. I just sort of leaned into it. The idea of getting Jalen Hurts correlation with Devonta Smith pick was something that anytime I draft A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, I think Jalen Hurts is at a very nice range to return value. So it's just sort of the way it fell. And then when it came to the McLaurin pick, I like that value there. It opens me up to potential correlation with Jaden Daniels. And then I like Worthy lately. I think he's actually his ADP, I think, is going to rise throughout training camp. I think he's going to be a fast riser and a guy who actually performs well to start the year. I'm bullish on Worthy, and I think that the Chiefs have a plan for him. And in best ball, I don't have to worry about which weeks to start him. I think the spike weeks for Xavier Worthy are absolutely going to be there.
Would you draft him over Hollywood Brown?
Yes.
Spicy boy.
I think I would. I mean, it's structural. I mean, Billy and I talk about structural drafting a lot. If my build needed wide receiver, like in a redraft sense, if my build needed early season wide receiver production, then I think Hollywood Brown is probably the pick. But if it's just a best ball setting like this, where I have the entire year, I think that those spike weeks from Xavier Worthy are going to be worth making that head-to-head decision against Hollywood Brown.
If there would ever be a format to draft the fastest wide receiver ever, it would probably be this one, right?
100%.
So I'm about to do something that is kind of ridiculous. Let me know what you guys think about this move, and it's something you would ever do. My first running back is Jahmyr Gibbs, and I'm going to go ahead and also select David Montgomery right now.
It's called stack cuffing.
Stack cuffing, man.
There you go. Cuff it up. You guys down? You guys get down with that? I mean, for me personally, I think both these guys could be. If there's going to be a team that has 2 RB1s on it, a la the 2017 Saints, this is the team I would pick. So
you've had back-to-back years where this offense has supported 2 running backs. The Ben Johnson offense has been so running back centric, and the only issue being with that sort of build is the draft capital you give up. I think when Billy and I talked about stack cuffing, it's a lot of these backfields like potentially a Pollard and Spears where maybe you wouldn't have to give up that early round pick. That's the only argument against what you did with the Detroit. We know Detroit's going to score a lot of running back points. We know those guys are both good at football. I'm totally with you on Gibbs being an RB1 again, and I think Montgomery's going to be a RB2.
Stat cuffing. That's what I did, Howard.
I just don't know if these guys, if the disparity in ADP is really that warranted. Like, I mean, we talk about like things that the coaches say. Now there's coach speak, and then there's like legitimate commentary. Like, like 2 weeks ago, Mike McDaniel was being asked about his backfield, and he was like, this backfield led by Raheem is one of the best running back rooms I've ever coached. Right? It was like last year, Dan Campbell was like, I like a guy to take 20 carries and really handle the bulk of the work, and the other guy does the complementary work. Like, the coaches are saying this, and then the fantasy community is like, we love Jahmyr Gibbs, we love Devon Achane, and they forget about the other two, right? I mean, you look at a backfield like, stat cuffing for like Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, like that definitely is something that I think, is a good stat cuff there, but the ADP is kind of close together, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for you to be able to do that. But I just don't know if I see the disparity in ADP being warranted in both Detroit and Miami.
What do you think, Billy? Do you think Jahmyr Gibbs, are you picking him in the first round?
Man, I feel like Howard and I are on wavelengths today. Howard,
are you
feeling this,
Howard? I might need to take you out. You're not even in the draft.
This is like you and me sitting there at the airport having breakfast together, just schmoozing.
So Theo's gonna hate this comment. Him and I have had many.
I already hate that you're even legitimizing this comment with.
I drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, so go ahead.
So, from a projection standpoint, when you break down the total carries and the total receptions of the team, there's only so much of a pie that you can distribute, and people always forget that there's other players on these teams that also run the ball. There's receivers that have a carry or two here and there. There's the quarterback. There's a tight end. There's a RB3, sometimes an RB4 that gets in the mix. And so when you start tallying up all of these carries inside of these teams, specifically, let's focus here on the Dolphins. It gets muddied pretty quick. I mean, they added Jalen Wright. Raheem Mostert had a career year last year, doubled his touchdown output. We know that Devon Achane is electric and just, Chris Johnson light, essentially. But this team has a lot of mouths to feed, not only in the backfield, but in the receiving game. And when you talk about his production, the guy averaged, I think it was 7.8 yards per carry. And people are assuming with the increased workload that he's going to maintain this hyper efficient role, and with more carries and touches, that just simply can't happen. I mean, from a statistical standpoint, I mean, he's probably going to be upwards of 6 yards a carry, but still, that's a carry. That's almost 2 yards a carry that it's going to decline. And so when you bake in that into the equation, he's going to have to average over 6 yards a carry and probably be in the 180-yard mark to even pan out to be inside the top 10 at the position, let alone into the top 6 where he's being drafted. So in my opinion, unless there's an injury to Mostert, which is possible, or they simply don't use Jalen Wright at all, because right now he's slotted for about 13 to 18% of the total rush share, then we find ourselves in a predicament where we're drafting Devon Achane at ceiling. And this is also projecting an increased workload on the ground and projecting an increased workload inside of the air for the target share. So statistically and mathematically, it's very hard to project Achane where he's going at his current ADP. I like the player, I like the offense, but from a mathematical equation, it's very hard to kind of break down.
Yeah, I'm not drafting much Gibbs and Achane
Billy.
in my. I'm not drafting enough. I'm not drafting much in like super big high stakes leagues, or definitely not my big hometown league, which is the most meaningful one to me, and it's also kind of high stakes. I don't really go with those guys in a format like this. Best ball, I'm mixing them in a little bit, but I'm with you on that. Just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to a couple people drafting with us for the first time. T Mills in the house. Also, our guy Strass. Strass just got a membership for Fantasy Alarm this week. He became an all-pro member, said he loves what we're doing with the SiriusXM show, the YouTube. So Strass, thank you for getting in with us. If people want to get involved, go to fantasyAlarm.com/win and get set up. You can get a 50% off your first month using promo code Let's Go. Or scan the QR code right there. Is there any way we can put that over Billy's face? hit that QR code that's right next to Billy down there and get set up. And you can draft with us in these drafts. You can be in the Discord. You can get all the answers. Promo code Let's Go gets you 50% off. Or if you want to do the annual instead of just the first month, it's 40% off for the annual. So get set up with us now. And of course, if we're playing on Underdog, so if you're going to go with Underdog, use promo code ALARM. They'll match your deposit 50% up to $250. So shout out to those guys coming in. Strass, remind me after this, I got to get your badge set up on the Discord. That shiny badge you get for joining us in these drafts. I'm on the clock, so somebody else talk about football.
Well, I think it's interesting when we're talking about guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane. Billy makes a very big point about using projections, but for me, it's these two guys are just exceptional talents. Offensive schemes can change year to year. I think we would agree that these are two of the more creative and productive offensive coordinators in football. And the thing with Jahmyr Gibbs is when he was coming out, this is a guy that we thought could be like an Alvin Kamara, like a Reggie Bush in terms of early receiving production. He was actually very disappointing as a receiver. And I think that's one sort of underrated aspect of his game, not really even underrated, but sort of under talked about, is he could make a massive leap forward as a receiver. And I think it would probably be rational coaching to get the ball in his hands more as a receiver out of the backfield, like way more than maybe we're projecting him for. And then with Devon Achane, we rarely get to see this sort of a player who scored at the level he was playing in available in third rounds of drafts. I understand the reasons not to take him, but last year we had 3 running backs who were like a sub 195 pounds finish inside of the RB1 land. When you're talking about Gibbs, you're talking about Kyron Williams, you're talking about James Cook. James Cook, look at how much his touches increased from year 1 to year 2. So I get competition, but at the end of the day, these coaches are going to get the ball in the hands of these sort of elite weapons and elite playmakers. Devon Achane's the kind of guy that, if it all kind of lands well, could break football. And Billy, you even said it, your projection for him is maybe a slight loss at ADP, but if he beats that, he could be a massive win. So I actually think he's got a floor in there as well, even with Mostert, even with Wright. So that's sort of where I'm at. I want exposure to those elite talents whenever I can.
Okay. I mean, there's no question the guy is electric. I mean, 200 yards, 4 touchdowns last year in a single game, right? So
and it's high volume enough, right? I mean, it's a high volume running attack in Miami anyway, that it can support 2 guys. Like that's the thing as well, is that I just, that's one of the reasons why I say, I can understand why people are taking Achane in the second round. I guess it's the fact that Mostert is pushed as far down as he is. Like he's not going to score 20 touchdowns again. I get that. But for the same token, everybody's like, well, he's getting older and he's going to get hurt. The reason that he's actually been successful is because he's used in a shared backfield situation. It just helps keep him healthy. So.
And they said, oh, Jamal Williams scored 17 touchdowns in 17 games, but David Montgomery's not going to do that. But then David Montgomery, if you exclude the one game he got hurt, he scored 13 touchdowns in 13 games. So it's not crazy that the touchdown scoring back on the good football teams are going to score touchdowns. I mean, that's kind of how football works. I want to get back to this draft board real quick. One thing I want to point out, T. Mills waiting 10 rounds to take his first quarterback in a format where you do have to draft 2 or 3. He takes Brock Purdy. I'm going to shoot this one down to San Francisco down there. Did T-Bills fly a little too close to the sun on this one, Billy? Is that something you would do? And is Purdy the guy you would take there?
I don't think you want to ask me about waiting at quarterback. I push it to the extreme at times. It's where Theo gets scared when he drafts with me, and he gets a little nervous. But we have every year we have quarterbacks who are drafted outside the top 15 of the position, finish inside the top 10. There's countless years that we can go back and look at the data and say that, as of late, Geno Smith, we talked about, Justin Fields, there's every year it happens. Brock Purdy, we had Jared Goff. I mean, there's countless names that we can discuss here. So it's a matter of identifying and finding them. Brock Purdy, to me, I mean, I sat down with like a rankers roundtable talking about projections, and I'm the Niner guy in the room, and I had Purdy ranked the lowest at quarterback 9. And so there was people who had him as high as quarterback 6 inside that discussion, which I think if he can maintain his hyper efficiency, great. But I'm kind of baking in the fact that Brandon Ayuk is possibly departing, and we have to make adjustments accordingly. And so I think that I think he has the ceiling to be arguably like a top 5-6 quarterback in the NFL. Should he be able to continue to push the ball down the field and maintain the efficiency. But I do think that there is a potential of some regression because he's been hyper efficient in a lot of regards. So to answer your question in a long-winded answer, yes, I think he's fine sitting as his quarterback one.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that was the first quarterback he took. He also just took his first running back in round 11 with Jerome Ford. So
right, that draft plan is just I'm like,
he's going crazy. I also love that Jeffro took two picks before Theo.
I know,
that would have been such a good value for you having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like, wow, he's gonna get him at ADP, and then Jeffro was not so fast, my friend. Yeah.
I added to my Philadelphia stack though, so one door closes, another opens up in best ball.
Yeah, I just took Devin Singletary and Zeke Elliott, so my team is boring and lame. Let's look at some other teams around here that are actually fun. Let's see here. Let's look at Strass's team. Very first time drafting here with the family. Strass in the house. He went Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and then he did the right thing when you do that and drafted all the other positions for a while. Michael Pittman, Stephon Diggs, Mark Andrews, Joe Burrow, Christian Watson, Zach Moss, Josh Palmer, Javonte Williams, Caleb Williams. The most divisive player in all of fantasy football, Mr. Christian Watson. How do you guys feel about Watson? I'm not going to tell you where I stand. Maybe you've seen my thoughts on it, but are you guys Dontavian Wicks guys? Are you Romeo Dubs playoff hero truthers? Do you think Jaden Reed gets a full-time role? Are you eating those Bo Melton cheese melts? I mean, where are you? Malik Heath, what do you guys feel? Theo, if you had to pick, like with Christian Watson, people are like, he's either the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 4. Where are you at with Watson?
Well, I think he's certainly a spike week guy on this offense if he can stay healthy at the very least. And so in best ball, I think we think this is going to be a plus offense that's rising and ascending. So I'm sort of okay with Watson. If I had to pick the one that I think is going to have the best season among all Green Bay wide receivers, I think it's going to be easily Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed's, I think, a guy that the coaching staff likes a lot. Coop, you bring up the snap share, and I think that's sort of the X factor where he was like playing 55%, 60% of the snaps last year. But I see them taking a step forward with that. That was a guy they leaned on when Aaron Jones was out. Now Aaron Jones is gone. You also have the fact that the guy was a rookie. Maybe they slow played it a little bit for him. But I think Jaden Reed is going to comfortably finish inside of, let's say, wide receiver 28, right around there, with potential for a little bit more. Not sure where Billy has him currently in his projections, but I'll be interested to hear that as well.
Wide receiver 28. I mean, so what are you saying? He's going to be
maybe a little
Tyler Boyd with a couple carries?
No, a little bit higher. A little bit higher. I don't want to go
all these nice things about him. They say wide receiver.
Okay, so I'll say wide receiver 23 to keep you inside of wide receiver 2.
Okay, I like that.
An ADP win.
I think that's fair. I think he's like, the reason this debate is so much fun is because each different faction, the way people approach the game, kind of pick somebody different. Like if you're the people that go for snaps and reliability, like Romeo Dubs, the eye test people are going to pick Jaden Reed, right? Like if you're if you're a film guy, you're going to pick Jaden Reed. If you're like an extrapolation and a what if person, you pick Christian Watson. And then of course the deep cut metrics folks are going to gravitate towards Dontavian Wicks, which Howard, have you drafted Dontavian Wicks one time in any of these? We've done about 20 of them. Yeah, that's what I think. What about you? What about you, Billy?
I haven't had the opportunity to. I mean, some people are taking them a little higher, but again, I just, I look at what the target rate is going to be for these guys, and you've got Reed, and you've got Watson, and you've got Dobbs, and you've got Luke Musgrave, all still sitting there. So no, I'm not like, listen, I think he's fine in a best ball format. I know it's like the standard cliche answer for fantasy football, right? Is that, I like him for best ball. But I mean, I really am in that situation for a best ball draft. I'm okay if you want to take him, maybe he pops for, 2 or 3 games, but I'm not going to rely on that unless I'm like really digging deep.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen as much hype for a wide receiver that didn't have a 100-yard game last year. But I mean, I've also understand the arguments, the yards per route run, and he did. I mean, his route running is crisp. Billy, are you a Dontavian Wicks guy, or are you just a cautiously optimistic observer, or are you just completely out?
No, I'm out on Wicks. I think he's the clear cut
Wow,
wide
you
receiver.
and Howard are like best friends, dude.
He's the clear-cut wide receiver 4. He's potentially the 5th option on a week-to-week basis. Now, if Christian Watson gets hurt again with the hamstring injury, then great. He's the 3rd receiver and potentially the 4th option on any given week with the tight ends. Add in the mix now, they have a pass catching back too, and so there's a lot of variables here. But I am on board with what Theo said earlier about Jaden Reed. I have him as the wide receiver 30 right now in projections. And so when you break down the overall targets of this offense, it's kind of disgusting, quite frankly. But when you look at like the splits last year, Jaden Reed, you could argue, like you mentioned earlier, like the data guys are going to say, he was pulled during 3 wide receiver sets, but he was very efficient in the touches that he had. So I think that they find a way to keep him on the field in 2 wide receiver sets this year. And I think that we're going to see maybe Romeo Doubs take a back seat to Christian Watson when he is healthy, and Romeo is going to be the guy they rotate in and out this year, or maybe it's Christian Watson. But I think Reed probably has the safest floor of all these guys. But we're talking about 17.5, 18.5, 21, 20.5 target share between 3 of these guys. And so no one's the clear-cut dominant alpha in the receiving game, but I do think Jaden Reed has the best bet to be successful of all 3 of them.
I wrote an article on that exact thing. I was like, I'm buying in Dynasty. I'm buying guys that I think could become that slot guy that is a full-time guy. He plays like 200 snaps on the outside, but he doesn't leave the field. I had Jaden, and I'm saying I'm buying him now in Dynasty. It might not be this year, but it's going to happen at some point. They were Jaden Reed, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and I threw a little Josh Downs in there as a maybe, but he's not on the level those guys are at. I mean, the stats were very similar to Jaden Reed without the touchdowns. But
so there's an interesting stat. So Jaden Reed, of course, we talk about his splits on and off the field, but from his target rate, so different from target share, from the time he's on the field being targeted is 24% of the time. Where you have Christian Watson, who was at 19.9, and you have Romeo, who was at 18.9. So he's a clear favorite when he is on the field, and then he was able to perform with those targets. So, man, it's hard not to like him. And I think if he's able to see 21, 20, 22% target share, we're probably talking about, like Theo mentioned, maybe top 24 at the position.
All right, I'm feeling it. I just took a fairly divisive player here. I just took Deshaun Watson. Theo,
I would have taken him when he was coming up around as my QB2. Okay. I think it's actually very good value you got right there this late.
I love drafting when Howard gets kicked out of the draft by somebody randomly joining, because I'm getting me and Howard are usually battling for players.
Getting all his players now.
I'm getting Cooper Kupp. I got Kyle Pitts. I got Anthony Richardson. It's like usually we split a lot of these guys. So I don't know. I kind of like the style of play here. Somebody in the chat, Rex Timotheus, pointing out that you're drafting a lot of these rookie RBs, Theo. Is that just a best ball thing for you, or are you liking this rookie class in the value in a lot of formats?
I think that there is value in drafting rookie running backs in all formats right now. It's carried over from and it's a contrarian view. I think that we've had 10 straight years, guys, with rookie running backs finishing inside of RB2 land. None are being drafted like that. Now, especially with Jonathan Brooks being put on the PUP, you're not going to see any rookie running backs drafted in a place where you're used to taking a rookie RB1. And I think that the dynasty community really pushed these guys down whenever they could. Player Profiler, we were a little bit more bullish on the rookie running back class. I think you could see that with our dynasty rankings. We were on Trey Benson sort of before the combine. He's come up if you follow like Keep Trade Cut. But I think it's sort of you have a great combination of a lot of these guys falling into plus offenses where they're either the direct handcuff to an older running back, or they are guys that have contingent upside like a Jalen Wright. So for me, I think that that's going to be one cheat code when we look back at the end of the season, that this rookie running back class was a little bit better than people thought. And a lot of them are in situations where they're going to be able to perform well. And even with some of the non-older running backs, you have guys like Will Shipley, you have guys like Ray Davis, who are, I think, the second most talented running backs on their team, where they're going to get an opportunity potentially with contingent value. So for me, I think that this class is a little bit too beat up, and I'm happy to take shots on them.
I kind of love that the Jalen Wright idea that, okay, we know they want to split the backfield, right? It's like they've already told us.
Double
exactly.
play,
It's a double handcuff, right? Because so if they say, okay, we're splitting it no matter what, one of those guys goes down, he gets a workload that we've already deemed based on the ADPs of HN and Mostert. We've already deemed those workloads to be conducive to fantasy. So Jalen Wright, at some point in your regular fantasy football season, you probably won't go drafted in your hometown redraft league. I'm predicting that at some point there's going to be a week where the fab hammer gets dropped on Jalen Wright, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did a handcuff rankings article at Player Profiler where I ranked pretty much every handcuff or second running back drafted on their team. And I had to do a whole special section for Jalen Wright as a guy that we strongly, as much bullishness as I have on Devon Achane, like you said, it's a double contingent play where if Achane misses time, Jalen Wright is instantly a top 20 running back. If Raheem Mostert misses time, Jalen Wright's instantly a top 20 running back, and that's like a low-end projection. This offense could lead the NFL in scoring. I think we saw it last year. They were top 3 in scoring, and no coach gets more out of his running backs than we see with McDaniel. So, yeah, I'm totally with it.
Okay, so since we're talking about running backs and handcuffs and uncertainty, why not hit Billy Muzio with probably the most difficult and also the most important question in all of fantasy football? Billy, who's going to be the starting running back for the Chargers, dude?
Gus Edwards.
Gross.
And is he the pick in fantasy? Is he the pick in best ball? Is that the play?
Yeah, we've already seen the coach come out and say that Gus Edwards is going to be the lead back. When we look at the history of this coaching staff, they like to run the ball. So back to their days as Niners, we saw Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman lean on the running game. I would normally say that with this backfield and these guys, these names, that you can't do that, but they also have the same or similar concerns on the receiving core. When you talk about the wide receiver one, it's kind of up for grabs as well. So I do think that they pass more than they have in the past. But because first and foremost, because they have Herbert, but I do think they will lean on the ground a bit. I mean, Gus has actually been pretty efficient with his touches so far in his career, but yes, it's been in an RPO system. So it's a bit of a change here to Justin Herbert, but I mean, he's averaged about 5 yards a carry for his career.
Did we just shut down Billy?
Billy just froze. Billy just froze.
I think everything froze on my side, dude. Oh, is Billy Cook there? I don't know. I picked J.K. Dobbins while he was talking. I wasn't listening.
He's going to come back like mid-sentence, too. He's going to be like, and that's the secret to winning best ball.
Right, the top secret. What if he's like a robot and he actually comes back and just picks up right where he left off? Like his battery is just low.
If we just see like Billy's wife like sneak in, she winds him up in the back. All of a sudden he's like, hey,
B12 shot. B12 shot.
Hopefully that doesn't ever happen while he's flying his plane. Right?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So I like the Kamani Vidal shout outs here. Yeah, I mean it's so tough, man. It's so tough. This is the one where like you really wish they would just come out and tell you. But even if Jim Harbaugh came out and told me something, I'm not even trying to believe it. That guy's saying some crazy stuff.
It's actually very interesting. And I see in the chat, like Gus has never had 200 carries. Correct me if I'm wrong on that Coop, but I don't think he's ever crossed 200 carries. Last year he was so fortunate with all the rushing touchdowns, which is not always something we can bank on. I still think it probably is Gus Edwards for the start of the season, but if they're going to run like a Greg Roman offense, I think he will wear down. There's some value in Vidal, but I don't know. There's not a whole lot of vibes right now with Vidal.
Yeah, because you didn't finish your talk, Billy, I drafted J.K. Dobbins. You weren't able to finish convincing me. But no, I'm with you. I think Gus, it's one of those ones where it's like the answer is the answer that we don't like. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Right? It's like the same answer for like if Romeo Dubs ends up being the guy that leads the Packers in snaps again, we wouldn't be surprised, but it's not the answer we want. Right? So, and that's football. That's ball. Since we're getting down to the end here, do you just play it as it lies, or do you reverse engineer? A lot of people these days, and Pete Overzet talks a lot about reverse engineering his draft, where he has players that he knows he can get at the end of the draft, either reaching for them or guys going outside the top 215. Do you guys ever reverse engineer things, or are you just playing it straight the whole way through? I'll ask you, Theo.
I think that when you know your guys that you can get in rounds 18 and round 17, round 16 for that matter, and have guys that you can lean back on, I think it makes everything a little bit easier, especially when you talk about structure, which Billy's great about talking about, where I know that I can get Jalen McMillan anytime I draft Baker Mayfield. Sometimes I get him in the 17th round, sometimes it's 16th round. And those sort of things make it easier when you're drafting best ball. And I think it's important when you're trying to play catch up, especially at like the one-off positions, know your quarterback strategy, know your tight end strategy, where maybe you have to dive into one of those positions in round 17 and round 18. I'm not sure if it's quite reverse engineering, but I think having well laid out plans for the end of drafts is probably more important than the first two rounds, where there's so many guys that are going to return value to you.
Yeah, that's the thing. It feels like, especially at quarterback and tight end, right? Like you were saying, if you have a couple guys in your back pocket, it makes it so much easier. You don't have that pressure to get
Yep.
in with the the crazy group, and if you miss out on the mobile guys, you're not panicking because you got those guys. That's what guys like Deshaun Watson feel to me, and Howard Bender. I was actually planning on taking Will Levis, Howard, but I didn't get around to it, as I've yet to be able to draft Will Levis. Howard has quite a market share of the Will Levis.
He is the ultimate of QB2s. They're just all they're gonna do is throw. They're
Chuck
gonna
it.
you bring in Tyler Boyd, one of the most reliable underneath guys that you have. You've got Calvin Ridley, who's gonna take it deep. DeAndre, who can do both. I mean, who knows? Maybe Treylon Burks stays healthy for a couple of plays, and then you got two solid pass catching running backs. I mean, Brian Callahan. He did this with Joe Burrow and the crew in Cincinnati. He's done it with Stafford. He's worked with Manning, Peyton, that is. So yeah, listen, I'm a big proponent of what they're going to be doing in Tennessee for fantasy purposes. I don't give a crap about wins or losses. The team could go 0-17 for all I care, just as long as Will Levis is just playing that huck it, chuck it football, in the second half. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, he could be like the new Jay Cutler. That's what I kind of see, because he's willing to chuck it up. And again, we don't care. I don't care about interceptions, especially pick sixes are great. You get the ball right back. So
Right.
yeah, I'm with you on that. I got to make my last pick here.
I love the pro pick six argument. It's mind blowing. I
great.
love it. It's terrific.
So I did a little study where I was looking at those things. I was looking at pick sixes. I was looking also at kickoff returns, because people are saying, okay, people are like, oh man, there's going to be so many kickoff returns this year. The average NFL play, and this is probably going to come into effect most for DFS, but the average team does 63 plays on offense in the NFL last year, at least. In the games where a team ran a kickoff back for a touchdown or a punt, a kickoff or punt, the other team averaged 75. So a full 12 more plays. And it makes sense because, you go downfield, the ball goes to the other side. It's going to create some wonky game scripts, though. Just imagine Aaron Rodgers comes out, does his super slow 10-play trudge down the field, and then they kick a field goal. And then the other team runs the kickback, and then he does a 15-play drive. I mean, that's the entire first quarter. So something to keep in mind for DFS. Not so much for this, though, right? I mean, you guys aren't leaning into kick returners or any of that in this type format, right, Billy?
No, not particularly. I mean, unless it's Austin Eckler, I guess.
You think he's going to return kicks?
that they've been talking about it.
That would be a mistake. I believe that would be a big mistake. Can you
Went from
imagine
being a premier running back and people were taking him as like the RB2 or 3, and now he's like Mr. Kickoff return.
Dude, that would be crazy. He would probably fist fight Anthony Lynn, right? Like Anthony Lynn convinces him to come. He's like, yeah, it'll be just like it was with the Chargers. And little did he know he meant the early in his career when he was returning kicks. That would be wild. Now, what's crazy interesting to me is it's not so much fantasy relevant, but have you seen the talks about like defensive ends potentially, like Micah Parsons and Garrett, Myles Garrett, saying that they want to return kicks? Like they're asking to get that permission. Do you think teams are going to put big dogs back there like that?
Hell no.
There's
Hell
not
no.
a chance in hell.
I know. It'd be so much fun. Maybe like second string guys though, if you got a guy, you know.
No.
You think it's all going to be running backs and wide receivers?
I mean, or
and defensive backs.
Yeah, this is it's an art, and in my opinion, I mean, you have some of the elite returners that were so good at it, that were gadget players inside the receiving core that they didn't really need to rely on as a receiver, but had the ability to find open space, those twitch movements, and make a man miss. And so I think there's a special type of player that needs to be a kick returner or a punt returner. I don't think you can just throw everyone back there.
Yeah, I mean, if Myles Garrett gets hurt returning a kick, you get
fired.
You go directly to jail.
Yeah,
I think you actually go right to jail.
You're out. That's it.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
they actually
See you later.
take you out in
See you
cuffs.
later. Yeah.
So we started this draft a little early, not on purpose, but we were able to finish up pretty quickly. I'm looking through at some of the teams here. Couple teams projected for over 3,000. Doesn't necessarily mean you have the best team.
They just drafted 3 quarterbacks.
It means you drafted 3 quarterbacks. Yeah, that seems to be the case. Do you find yourself drafting 3 quarterbacks often, Billy, or is it just depending on who you get early versus late? I see you drafted Russell Wilson, who is a guy I am very much in on.
Yeah, I think he's undervalued this year. I mean, the guy hasn't finished outside top 20th position, and he's being drafted as like quarterback 30 right now. But that's time for another story, I guess. But I normally will go with 2 if I get an early guy like Josh Allen. If I'm waiting at the position and, we're talking about outside the top 14 or 15, then I'll go ahead and triple tap the position. I think it just depends upon what I'm trying to do, how the board's falling. Sometimes you have no intention of drafting a quarterback inside the top 10 and you're trying to diversify your portfolio. And then all of a sudden you get somebody like Kyler Murray, who has every opportunity to be a top 5 quarterback, falls to you, 2 rounds past ADP, and then it just throws a curveball in your plans. And so if you go in with the mindset of saying, hey, I'm going to get XYZ player with this build, and you don't take advantage of the ADP landscape and how it's falling to you, then I think that you did yourself a disservice of, being able to get players at cheap and diversify without the cost. So I am very firm believer in coming in, being flexible and looking at the draft and how it falls to you, and then making up your decisions from there.
Yeah, that's the way to live. You got to take value as it comes, know all the strategies, pivot whenever you can. And folks out there, if you want to know all the strategies that are out there, if you want to know who the late targets are for 0 RB, who the wait on wide receivers guys, the late round quarterbacks, there's a little strategy called yin yang tight end. If you want to learn all the targets for those, go get the Fantasy Alarm draft guide, which is available now, fantasyalarm.com. It's got all those strategies. Learn all the targets, and then you can be fluid like Billy Muzio here, absolute superstar in the fantasy landscape. You can pick best available and then pivot to those strategies. Don't go into your draft saying that I'm going 0 RB no matter what. That's how you end up with a running back room of Jerome Ford, Zach Charbonnet, Rico Dowdle, and Will Shipley, as T. Mills did. Actually, I mean, he kind of pulled it together considering how he started. So can't really blame that one. But go fantasyalarm.com, get a copy of the draft guide now. Why don't we take a minute here and why don't you guys tell us what you guys got going on at Player Profiling? And you guys are always up to something over there. I know you got stuff behind the scenes you might not even be able to announce yet, but let us know what you got popping.
Theo, go ahead. Go on the content side first.
Oh yeah, so on the content side, we dropped our draft kit. That's always a big project of ours. Right on the front page, you can find it this year. There's contributions from people across fantasy football, including Coop, who's helped us out with a cameo for the last few years. Billy Muzio talking about Christian McCaffrey. How could you not want to buy that draft kit? You could use the code Theo, get $20 off the all-in package. Don't use the code Billy ever. Use the code Theo. And you can find
Billy, you picked Christian McCaffrey as your player. That's such a cop-out.
I assigned it to him. It to him. It was on brand, and we wanted Billy
nice and
I wanted Billy because Billy would be like, let me get player number 130 who I'm bullish on this year. And I'm like, then like 3 people are gonna watch your video. So I'm like, Billy, you're doing this one, please. And he's like, oh, okay, sure. I don't have to twist his arm to do 49er stuff.
I thought it was just a height joke for the low hanging fruit, but okay, I see where you're going. You're going for views. I'm with you.
100%. And then podcast wise, Billy and I are on First Class Fantasy every single week. Coop, you've been on with us. We'd love to have you on sometime, Howard. Press coverage, Dynasty Life, Sonic Truth. I'm sort of all over the place there. And then my written work, you can find that at Player Profiler. I just dropped a post-hype sleepers. A couple guys I think could bounce back this year versus their ADP from last year that are now at sort of a discount. Ramondre Stevenson was in that article. So if you want to read my thoughts on Ramondre Stevenson and why you should draft him, you can find it right there. And yeah, we're pretty much dropping an article every day, and podcast, YouTube. We're putting out a ton of content. We've got a lot of really strong people. And yeah, this was a lot of fun today. A lot of respect for what you guys are doing as well.
Love it, dude. Billy?
On my side, we're doing projections and rankings on a weekly basis, but I can actually finally announce that we are launching our best ball app on Monday. It has been a long time coming. The name of the app is Fast Draft, fastdraft.app. I am going to be removing the invitation code from the app here shortly, but that thing is going to be launched. We're going to be live in 32 states from day one, and by the end of the year, we're going to be in 39 states. I have been working quietly and diligently behind the scenes with state regulators and licensing applications. And you should see the stack of paper you had to submit for Pennsylvania. It was like 1,200 pages of documents. But I'm excited to say that this thing is finally coming to fruition, and it is here, and we get to launch on Monday.
I love that, dude. Congratulations, man. Get me set up with that. I want to check it out. They got the caps popping already.
The big hat.
The big one.
Shout out Brian Robinson.
That's sick, dude. The big hat. All right, Benderino, why don't you let everybody know what we got going on here?
I don't know. Do we have anything going on here? The draft guide, the tail end of the content for the living draft guide for Fantasy Alarm is rolling out. I actually have one more systems article to cover, finish up the NFC West. We got a bunch of late round target articles that are coming out, and then we're gonna spend our entire time in the month of August focusing on drafts and draft strategies, whether it's auction, whether it's snake. We're going to get everybody involved in that. And, we're going to start getting everybody 100% prepped and ready. So we're going to be doing a lot of family drafts, like we do here on Wednesdays, and lots of other stuff kind of emerging here. I don't know. I'm like, I feel like I've been in like a cocoon for so long doing all the writing stuff that I've been doing. So, I think that's the way to go. And then, you know what? I'm just going to use this platform to turn around and tell everybody out there watching, if you want to draft against me, by all means, let's do it. Let's get it on. I'm working with rtsports.com on Beat Howard Bender Draft. So if you go to rtsports.com/Bender, all right, you use the promo code Bender. If you've never deposited over there, you get a first time deposit 50% match by using the promo code Bender. And then there's once you go through there, you hit rtsports.com/Bender, you'll see a whole list of drafts that you can join that I'm doing, and it's best ball and it's season long, and there are people clamoring for auctions, and it's waivers, and it's fab, and there's just like a whole crazy array of drafts. I'll probably be in like 100 season-long drafts this year, which will be absolutely insane. But you know what, man? It's a great time to like just sit and hang. I've been doing drafts with everybody regularly, and it's always a great crew. The chats are always fun, and if you want to hang out, be my BFF for the entire football season, that's where you got to be.
There you go. And just like these drafts that we do on Wednesdays, if you do beat Howard Bender, you get an upgrade to your badge on Discord. Whether, if it's your first one, you get a trophy. If you get a couple, we upgrade you to the crown, all that stuff. Nice shiny badge there if you do beat the great Howard Bender, which is no easy task. Me, I'm just doing football stuff every single day, all the time. So Just follow me on Twitter. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for I just too much going on. I really appreciate you guys joining us in these drafts, coming in the chat, hanging out with us, and of course, Theo and Billy sharing your time and your wisdom and everything you got going on at Player Profiler. It's great to see us two brands coming together, having fun together. 'Cause that's what fantasy football is all about at the end of the day. But that's it for us today. Everybody, like, subscribe.